Hey gang, welcome to Origination Nation. I'm your host, Chris and Darius, here with my main man, Steve Carpitella, and we are so pumped to have you with us today. Origination Nation is all about two things, relationships and collaboration, because that's what drives real results and success. In every episode, we sit down with leaders from across the industry who are doing things differently, bringing bold ideas to life and making a real impact. All progress originates with great ideas, and this show is about sharing what's working so others can learn, grow, and build something that lasts. So if you're all about connection, collaboration, and helping others level up, you're already a part of Origination Nation. So let's jump right in and see what we can originate together. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Origination Nation. Today we're extremely excited to have a guest on, Darius Mirshahzadeh, a serial entrepreneur, author, conscious capitalist, speaker, mad scientist, a lot of experience in the mortgage industry, and author of The Core Value Equation. So Darius, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Steve. Good to see you guys.
Likewise. So, interesting how me and you met, Darius. I had the honor of being in a coaching relationship with you, in which case we found out we had a common friend, Mr. Chris DeMatteis.
We went way back.
Yeah.
I was actually, before we hopped on, Darius, I was thinking back, what was it, 1998, I think it was, when we met at a semester at sea, and we had a voyage around the world, at 21 years old.
I was 20. I was a young
20.
pup.
Yeah. It's crazy how life and relationships come full circle. So yeah, when I heard you were involved with Steve and coaching at EPM, I did a double take. I couldn't believe it. Actually, before the show started, I went downstairs and I just pulled up some old boxes, and I actually have one photograph from back then.
Oh no!
I just want to show it to you. Here it is. That's Darius at 20 years old, covered in mud from the Dead Sea in Israel.
Now, what
that's
you
one
don't
of
see
my
on that,
favorite memories.
But what you don't see on that picture is I have the word sex written on my chest and an arrow pointing to my crotch. So
we did the PG version here. But.
Yeah. You didn't do me dirty. Yeah, man. I've always been a fucking character. Yeah, man. Chris and I, we did semester at sea, which was awesome, and it was funny because I remember, like, I got in the mortgage industry literally like 2 years after that. So I've been in the mortgage industry now, either as an operator or an advisor for 25 years. 47. So I was 20 when we met, and 22 by the time I was selling loans. So it's been a minute. And then I saw Chris get into the business a few years after that, like 06 or 07. Is that when you got in?
Yeah, Steve actually enticed me to join the mortgage industry. I was in California going down a whole different path. Steve, I was 2004, I think, when you got involved, right? And then brought me
to,
2002. Okay. Yeah. And then convinced me to join in 2006, 2007, right before the financial crisis. Great time to get involved in the mortgage.
Oh, just your timing was impeccable. Just like right before things got really interesting. So
Darius, I never actually never learned what got you into business. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got in the mortgage business? I didn't realize it was only 2 years after school.
So funny enough, I actually got in the business 4 years before that. So I got in the business in 1996 when I was a senior in high school, and my brother, I was an athlete, a pretty like hardcore student athlete. My brother was this kind of like partier like kid who was not a student athlete, and so I was in my senior wrestling season, and my brother, we always worked. So my parents had a rule that you couldn't do nothing. You either had to be in sports or you had to have a job. And so I was always in sports, and then I would have jobs in the off season. My brother, who wasn't like into that stuff, just always had jobs. So, I mean, he had all sorts of jobs, because as one does when they're young, like that, 16, 17 years old. And he got a job telemarketing. So back then, minimum wage in California was $4 an hour, $4.25 an hour. And you're doing hardcore shit. Like you're like car wash gas station, like crappy jobs. And he had gotten a friend of his or something. Maybe they put a job up in our career center in our high school for $6 an hour, which was a big deal because that was $2 more than 50% more than 4, to be a telemarketer at a mortgage brokerage in Orange, California. And so, and he found his calling. He was murdering it. He was the number one telemarketer in the whole company, like by the age of 17. And when I got done with my wrestling season, I was like, well, I got to get a job because that was my parents' rule. And my brother's he was doing so well, they're paying him $7 an hour. So I was like, well, shit, I'm going to go do that. So me and my brother and all of our friends, our entire high school friend group, worked at this call center. A call center, I mean, it was probably a 300 square foot room with a bunch of teenagers and 20-year-olds, like banging the phones, calling title, like literally like little index cards with like title names and phone numbers on them. And then writing on there like NI not interested, or like getting them like warm and then handing them off to a appointment center. So I started in the mortgage industry when I was a senior in high school, and then when I went to college, my brother stuck with that. And so by the time I met you, my brother was like a loan officer, and by the time I graduated 2 years after that, my brother was making like $100,000 a year at 22, 21 years old in 2000. And I like Steve had a degree in accounting from UC Santa Barbara. And I had a choice, like all my friends were working for Big Five accounting firms, but it was Big Five back then. And they're getting like job offers to be auditors for like $42,000 a year. And my brother's making $100,000 a year. And I was like, well, I'm going to go do what he's doing. So I got in the mortgage industry. Funny enough, I know this is a long-winded answer. Funny enough, I actually got fired from my first mortgage job. So they didn't have a junior program. I was working for a subprime lender in Irvine in 2000. They fired me 5 months into the job because the head of sales hated me, called me college boy, and he loved my brother, who was not a college graduate. And he just said, look, we can't have a training program. You don't know what you're doing. So beat it. You're fired. And then I got back in the business about a year later as a side hustle, and the rest was history. It took off from there. In 2002, I moved to San Francisco and did a side hustle gig, and then started my own brokerage. And then from there, man, I think I've done almost everything in mortgage you can do, literally. Everything from telemarketing to managing a $27, $30 billion MSR portfolio, selling mortgage assets, and now advising some of the fastest growing mortgage lenders in the United States.
I've gotten experience that firsthand, some of your expertise. So I can attest to it. But that was funny when we met and you're like, do you know a Chris DeMatteis? And I'm like, yeah, only for like 30 years.
It's so crazy.
It's like one of my best friends. What a small world. I called Chris. He was like, no way. Darius is the guy who went around the world with. Because I remember when Chris went on that trip. So yeah, it's pretty wild how our paths have crossed once again.
Well, the other thing about that, though, Steve, was like there were 600 students on the boat, and so like there would have been a very easy chance that like Chris and I would have like not been friends on the boat, but like we met like right away, and I was friends with him and his roommate Andy and Kevin, and like we were like partying like day 2. Chris had really long hair back then, like down to like the middle of his back or lower part of his back. So like
I found a couple of those pictures too, but I didn't bring them out. But
so dude, like I met Chris. Like day. I met you, I think the first day we got there, and we were raging that night. So we hit it off as friends pretty quickly.
Well, I had a job on the boat. I was a student aide, so my job I had to work unlike other students on the boat, and I was the AV guy during happy hour. So I had to run the music and the sound system during the happy hour. They were selling $1 beers from like the previous Olympics 4 years ago.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great time, great experience, 100 days around the world. And it's amazing. Crazy that we've reconnected, through Steve, who I knew a couple years before I even met you and went on that trip. And it's just amazing that, I ended up in the mortgage business, and here you are, running a multi-million-dollar company in the industry, and I've come so far and done so much. What do you see that has changed? What's the biggest thing that you've seen change in the industry since you got started? And where do you see the industry headed now, especially, in the dawn of technology and AI? What's the future for the industry and loan officers? I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on it. So look, the industry, it's so interesting because it's a cyclical industry, it's a commoditized industry, and it's a highly regulated industry. And so if you add all those things together, and my observation is like there was a pre-08 industry, and then there's a post-08 industry. And if you looked at the industry, like some version of it pre-08, probably for like 20 or 30 years, it was just a more technologically advanced version of itself. You had a off and on private securitization market. You had Ginnie and Fannie and Freddie kind of coming up, and that was an evolving business. But there was stuff like 125% loans in the late 90s that you could do, So like the industry, it's a rate sensitive industry. It reacts to interest rates with the intention of creating home ownership, right? And so if you're trying to create home ownership, the product is kind of always evolving to allow for that to happen. In the United States, we have over 60% home ownership. So I always feel like the industry is kind of, in the past, has always kind of maneuvered to like facilitate home ownership. I think what happened in 08, I started again in the business in the late 90s, and then, as a kid, and then became an adult in the industry 2000 through 2008. I'll remind people, in 08, there was 400,000 people in the mortgage industry. By 11, there was 100,000. So like, you show me any industry that loses 3/4 of its population, and I'm going to show you a pretty freaking miserable place to work, right? So those were really hard years, really from like 07 to like 12. Like that's 5 years. So just for people that aren't good at math, that's half a decade. I lived through that whole time. So did you guys. I didn't even make $1 of income during for those 5 years. I lived off of like sort of savings and shit. But post 08, really post 10, 11, 12 was you had the new industry come out. And that was an industry that had a couple things that were different. The banks were out because of Basel III and Dodd-Frank. So the banks got out. These mega banks that ruled the industry were no longer in the industry. Private securitization market was dead. So 60% of the market was private securitization. It went all the way down to like single digits. And mortgage brokers got annihilated. So mortgage brokers were the culprits behind the 08. They were the scapegoat for the 08 crisis, even though the big banks were really the ones that created it. And so you had this new world where it was like lenders ruled, private IMBs ruled. There was no such thing as private securitization anymore. Ginnie Mae took the place of subprime, and agents and everyone kind of like made their box really small. And it was a really like weird time to be in the business. And then from that, what we've seen is we now have a comeback of private securitization. You have non-QM, you have QM, you have this like safe harbor QM, non-QM loans. You have the agencies have become more robust. And I think to put the cherry on top, what we've seen is a resurgence, a whole new breed of people coming into the industry. I think we're back up to a couple 100,000 people in the industry. And mortgage brokers have taken over the industry. That's a really big, non-delegated lenders, mortgage brokers, really what your guys' business is, if I think of Informed Mortgage, that's a dominant part of the industry. It's the most competitive part of, if you want to get a good loan as a consumer, you're probably going to want to go to a broker. And that just wasn't true 10, 12 years ago. And it definitely wasn't true. It was arguable before then. And then last but not least, technology's just got a lot better, like we had this lull in technology. The technology hadn't kept up with the regulation because it was so overregulated. You couldn't really build technology to support it. And you've had this consolidation where Ellie Mae and Compass, which I'm forgetting what they used to be called, but they basically have taken over the industry. They're the they have a monopoly. But you've had a lot of fintech come in, most of which have not been very successful. That said, I think that where the industry's headed, you guys aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. I think that AI is going to completely like flip the industry on its head. If you look at every single person whose job is not to build a relationship and whose job is repetitive, they're screwed. They're done. And I thought this was going to happen through blockchain and through like the movement towards blockchain. And now I think it's a combination of leveraging blockchain, which we're not even there right now, but that'll come into play. But I think AI, we're already seeing it that you've had IA, offshore, Indian automation. That's been a big thing over the last 10 years. AI is just a computer doing that. And if you look at mortgage as a manufacturing business, and I look at mortgage as a manufacturing business, it is a freaking car manufacturing business where there's a manufacturing line that goes down the manufacturing line, and hopefully there's no defects, because a defective loan becomes a problem. And the only thing that causes defective loans is humans. And so if you can automate that through AI, which you can, I think that anyone that has a repetitive function in the business becomes automated through AI, and that'll create margin compression, that will create a much faster and easier and streamlined process for most products. And I think that will be good for probably homeowners in the end result, but I don't know if it's necessarily good for someone whose job is to have a repetitive process. So they're going to need to evolve or die. I think you're going to see a lot of evolution in how the AI takes over the process. And then the question will be, who has the most relationships and who can add the most value to do the one thing that AI can't do, which is build trust with consumers. So I think that's good for loan officers that have that ability. I think it's bad for everybody else. So if you said, Darius, what's your crystal ball say? My crystal ball says that the industry goes back to 100,000 people, and that you're going to have a lot less people in the business, and it's going to be the people that have built big relationships and can build trust and help homeowners make good decisions. That's what I think happens. And I think that happens in the next 3 to 5 years.
And or leverage themselves in the relationship with technology. There's always going to be some human element to oversee technology. Technology can glitch, like the oversight aspect of it.
Yeah. To your point, I think, look, this is not, I don't mean to be a doomsdayer. If I was to give advice to anyone who has a repetitive process, is go be good at the technology, go good at using this new automated process, go become that chief AI underwriter, go become that chief AI processor, go become that chief AI, closer, go help build the bots, go learn, go be an asset. Because I have a lot of friends in the world of AI, and they all say the same thing. You're going to have there's two classes that are going to come out of this. There's going to be the people that really understand the AI and know how to build it and work with it, and there's going to be everybody else. And the ones that do, they're going to make 4 to 5x what they're making right now, because they're going to be more valuable in their business. And so if I have a job that pays me 80, 100 grand a year, now I'm worth $500,000 a year, and I can replace 15 people. And the owners of the business are going to be like, they're not going to have a choice, because they're going to be competing against the people that are good at this. And they're going to say, well, I got to cut my costs, because if I don't, I can't be competitive. And they're going to reward the people that help add value, and the people that don't. I mean, I'm fairly concerned about what's going to happen to a lot of white collar and blue collar jobs with AI. And I think mortgage industry is going to get really disrupted. So that's what real estate in general.
I agree with you guys 100%. And, Steve, we've talked about this, and Darius, loan officers do have a concern about AI and the future of their role. Along with Steve, I believe that there's still going to be that human element. I mean, people are making, potentially the largest investment of their lives, in home ownership. And there's definitely a need for guidance still. And counseling and advisory on that front. A role of loan officers, in my opinion, is really one of a financial advisor in a lot of ways. So to your point, maintaining those relationships, providing that guidance, and helping people navigate the process. While a lot of the day-to-day and processing functions can be automated, I do still think there's going to be a role and an opportunity for loan officers. And to your point, back in 2008, when you said the industry contracted to less than 100,000 LOs, we're going through that again right now, right at post-COVID. I think there was 420,000 licensed originators in the country before COVID. Last year, I think it hit a low of maybe 70, 80,000. Maybe we're climbing back up to the 120 mark right now. But, there's still going to be a need for originators. And I'm excited about, integrating AI into the business moving forward. I think there's going to be an opportunity for those that are able to weather the storm. I got involved during the storm of, '08 and weathered the COVID storm. And, for those of us who are remaining in the business, I think there's a big opportunity. So, yeah, I'm kind of excited about the future. It's a little nerve wracking with AI, but I do think there's still an opportunity.
Yeah, I've been just saying to lean into it, embrace it. Change is inevitable. It's the only constant, right? Like just there's an opportunity in it. You can look at it as a plus or a minus. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. So I just see opportunity.
Yeah, I again, I'm not trying to be a doomsayer. I'm just being a realist, and I think I said something that I think is really key. And I've done, I'm at kind of a stage in my life where I'm like, kind of just being curious about stuff and not having a lot of free time on my hands, and I've go into the GPTs. I go into chat. I'm in chat GPT all the time. I have to do a ton of work for me, and I mean, it's my assistant more or less. And so I said, like, what jobs won't go ask chat GPT, what jobs will be least likely to be disrupted, and to tell it what your job is, and say, what would I need to do to make my job less disruptive? It'll tell you what, and it's pretty smart. And the feedback it gave me was high trust jobs, high trust, high creative, right? High strategic, and maybe at some point the robots get smarter than humans when singularity happens, and those jobs get disrupted too. But like, let's just be more like that's less likely, right? Repetitive stuff is simple, of course. Why wouldn't it get disrupted? But when we go high trust is a key word. And to your point, Chris, this is the biggest investment they're going to make in their lives. And I was investing in wealth managers before that. What is wealth managers? High trust. People are afraid of their money, dude. And they're afraid, and their money is their equity and their debt. They're afraid. And they should be, because most people are not very smart with money. And so like that's a good fear to have. So if everyone's afraid of their money and the biggest asset they own is their home, that means that they should have a healthy amount of fear around managing that asset. The LO should be there to help them make a good decision. And no matter what, even if a robot can do that, they're going to want to hear a human's voice. They're going to want to know that this human understands them, right? And at some point, maybe that gets disrupted too. But I would say that if you want to keep yourself in a position to win, to your point, Stephen, lean into it. It's like, how can I create more trust? How can I be a trusted advisor? I would triple down on building trust, because that's AI is not going to be able to disrupt that.
How can you leverage technology to just be more efficient in the process, the mundane task? Sure. At one point in time, people used to put bottle caps on bottles until a machine did it. This is no different. Some of these things are just going to get replaced because they probably should. It just doesn't need, you don't need someone to do it. The technology's there.
Yeah. So I think inevitably it's good for the business. If I look at the one thing that's really difficult about the business, like having ran really large, my last business was 1,000 people in the mortgage company, TMS, and we probably hired a couple thousand people. The biggest risk you have in the business is people, and are they going to show up be in a bad mood and do a bad loan, and so if you can automate that out of it and get more out of the right people, I think that's a winning combo. But I think to your point, Steve, you got to embrace it. You got to lean into it. And I think for people that do that, it's going to be really fun. And for people that just want to keep doing the same thing they've been doing over the last 20 years and just lean into repetitive process, you're going to get automated, so we'll see.
No, we're having fun with it for sure. We got some things cooking, so it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, Darius, I could sit here and talk to you all day. I appreciate you coming on the show and giving some perspective. It's great to just talk to you and see you all the time. I look forward to, continuing to watch you succeed in your business. Steve, any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, you guys never thanked me for reconnecting you, but that's cool.
It's all about relationships, and I'll never forget Darius.
It's all about relationships, and here we go.
Here we are.
Yeah. So
27 years later, right? We need to have a 30-year reunion. That's what needs to happen. So that's coming up.
I'm up for it.
2027, baby. 2028. There you go.
Right.
Cool.
Well, Darius, thanks again for tuning in. Everybody, thanks for watching. And until next time, stay informed, stay connected, and keep originating. We'll see you soon. Bye.
See you guys.